Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici. Welcome, my friends. My name is Vincenzo, and welcome to my channel, Fountain Pen Therapy. Well, here it is, folks. I've been promising you this for quite a while. I haven't had the time to get to it, but I finally did. Please check out my YouTube channel. Some time ago, I put up a guide, comprehensive guide to fountain pen friendly notebooks, where I reviewed over 60, 70 notebooks. It's a very long video, but with timestamps. So if, it's meant to facilitate the search. In other words, if you're interested in a particular notebook, you just hit the timestamp and there's a little bit of a short review of the notebook in question, or the journal, or the paper. I've added another approximately 20 to 25 notebooks that I've purchased since. Some of these notebooks were your recommendations. The viewers wanted me to check some of the notebooks out. I've added to the list. They're all here. I'm ready to go. So this is part 2 of my comprehensive guide to fountain pen friendly paper. Stay tuned. Okay, folks. Here they are. I've basically used the same categories as in part 1 of my comprehensive guide. I've divided these notebooks into 3 basic categories. As you all know, if you've been following my channel, my favorite fountain pen paper is Tomoe River. I'm not alone. A lot of us are great fans of that paper. It's expensive. The original no longer exists, but it's Tomoe River. So the first category of notebooks are Tomoe River notebooks. The second category that I've chosen and that I've categorized these notebooks under is notebooks that I refer to as Tomoe River replacements, or alternatives, if you will. So they act very much like the original Tomoe River, but are not Tomoe River. And then the third category is notebooks and paper that really stand on their own. Okay, and there's all kinds of categories, from all kinds of manufacturers. And that is my third category. So what we'll do is we'll start one at a time, go through each notebook. What I will do is I've prepared some swatches. The baseline for me is Tomoe River. So I have 3 swatches, Tomoe River, and then we'll compare the same swatches on each of these notebooks with some writing samples as well, just to see where we're going. And I'll give you my reflection and my perception of each and my evaluation of each. Okay, so without further ado, stay tuned and we'll get to the one book at a time. Okay, let's proceed. So the first category is the Tomoe River notebooks. Other notebooks that I had, or journals that I had, no planners that I had not reviewed in my part 1. Again, I have my baseline. This is Tomoe River, the original paper. I've done 3 swatches with 3 different inks and 3 different types of ink. I have the Colorverse Supernova, which is a nice ink, very wet, with some sheening, red sheening that sticks out very nicely. Then I have a Waterman Audacious Red, which is basically a standard ink. There's some shading, but pretty standard stuff. And then I have my Gerbin 1670 Emeraude de Chivor that has all kinds. That has sheening in there. There's also some shimmer, as you can tell, and it also has, and it's also very, very wet. So those are the 3 types of inks, generally, that we can that we can find on the market. And I want to compare just to see how the different notebooks work out with this baseline. So the first one I have for you is a Yamamoto paper. By the way, these Yamamoto pads are just fabulous. I really recommend them. You'll see I have 3 different types, different types of paper. Very, very nice. You should check out their site. By the way, in the timestamps, below the timestamps, I have every single notebook with a reference, a link where you can view the notebook online, check the specifications, the prices, order if you're interested. So the first one is this Yamamoto Sanzen Tomore River notepad. And as you can see, the first thing I think you should note is that the colorverse, in terms of sheen, the sheen is much more prevalent. The red audacious really look at the difference. It really stands out much more. If you will, let me just open the light here, an additional light, so that you can appreciate it even more. So you can see it, the punch of the red is even better. And look at the Gerbain. That's the way Gerbain should look like. In other words, it's got to have sheen, it's got to have shimmer, it's got to have shading. It's all in it. So I've got to tell you, this Sanzen paper so far really makes a big difference. So those of us who say, my God, the original is gone, well, maybe the Sanzen paper is there to stay. In terms of how does it react in the background, well, there is some see-through with all Tomore River paper. Okay, definitely there's with the red kind of, it's amazing that it doesn't come through the more the wetter and the punchier inks, but with the standard ink Waterman, there it is. Okay, so just goes to show you sometimes can't underestimate or overestimate some inks. So that's the Sanzen. Let's take a look at the next one, which is Sterling. Sterling Paper has come out with journals and planners. They're alternative to Obonichi and much cheaper. The Obonichi is now, cost you around $80. But this one, very nice. It's Tomore River paper. And take a look. Again, very nice sheen on the colorverse with the Sterling notebook. The Waterman Audacious Red is punchier. And wow, the Gerbain really sticks out as well. So just goes to show you there is a difference. Now, I've got to point that something out, and that is, let me just see if I could close up. Okay. I've got some of that, the characteristics of that ink in the writing. It's much less evident in the writing sample of this other notebook. So sometimes there is definitely a difference. Okay, there you have it. So let me just go back to its original position. But I did want to point that out. Okay, so that's Sterling. Very nice notebook. I mean, look, it's put together nicely, but it doesn't, it doesn't match Obonichi. Obonichi, the build quality of the notebook is just superb. But on the other hand, this thing costs maybe a third of the price. So recommend that you check it out. And by the way, they come out in all kinds of sizes. And it comes out in, you've got the little A6 size. You see, it's a free day. In other words, there's no annotations of any sort. So if you want to use that as an agenda or a daily calendar or a daily notebook, just mark in the dates, and you're not stuck with 1 day one page per day. Same thing for this. It's what I call freestyle. Very nice. Opens up. You know, it's Tomore River. Very nice notebook. Excellent. So that's Sterling. Next. Okay, let me just put this back. The next one, and I've been using this quite often, is the Galen Leather Everyday Pad. It's a notepad, Tomore River. And here is the sampling that we see. Once again, excellent sheen. The red punchier, the red Waterman is punchier there, and the Germain doesn't have the same punch as in other notebooks, but still very, very nice. And I can definitely see a little bit more of it in the writing, but very nice. In terms of the back here again, it's Tomore River, but once again, that red kind of goes through. But in terms of writing, everything is really nice. Oh, I forgot to show you the Sterling. How does the Sterling look in the back pages? There it is, Sterling. As you can see, the red kind of came through, but that's a lot of ink. But when it comes to the writing sample, yes, there's some see-through, but that's Tomore River. Is a very thin paper. But again, there's no feathering of any sort, so very nice. So that's Galen Leather, passes the test, as they say. The next Tomore River is another notepad by Nebula. Nebula is a colorverse notebook, and here it is. So some sheening there, punchy blue. The red is punchier, and less sheen. I see less of the red sheen on the Germain ink, but nonetheless, of course, the shimmer comes through. And in terms of what it looks like in the back, you can see all three swatches kind of penetrate because there's a lot of ink there. But when it comes to the writing, you know, it's typical Tomore River. There's some see-through, but it's not feathering, okay? And it's not bleed-through, if you will, okay? There's no bleeding there. You just can see through. There you have it. So that's one Nebula notebook. That's the notepad. Then I have a Nebula, what they call the Nebula Casual Notebook. So this is more in the notebook format. And here again, you could see that there's a little bit less red sheen than the other notebooks that we saw. The red is punchy. Here again, with that Germain, I could see the shimmer. I can see some of the shading, but I see much less of the red sheen. It's just not there. In fact, I probably see more in the handwriting than I do on the swatches. And in terms of the other side, well, this is a 68 grams, so much thicker paper. There's less see-through, but again, there's no bleed-through. There's no feathering. It's, you know, it's Tomore River. Okay, so that's the other Nebula Casual Note, as they say. Then I have this notebook, which it's from Pluma Paper. Found it on Amazon. Tomore River, very, very cheap, very affordable. And here's the swatch sampling. It's a kind of creamish color, so it's not the white colored paper. I see some of the sheening in the colorverse. The red is punchy, a little bit of sheen here in the Germain, but mostly shimmer. A lot less sheen. The red sheen doesn't really come through. Again, it comes through more in the handwriting than it does in the sample. The reverse side here again, some of the swatches you could see, but in terms of the handwriting per se, there's some see-through, but no bleed-through, and certainly no feathering on the paper. So that's Pluma, Tomore River. The quality is not bad. It opens up, very nice stitching, and like I said, very, very affordable. So that's the next one. The next one is this Aura Estelle planner. So it's a similar planner to Hobonichi, but freestyle. So you're not stuck with any markings or any dates or anything. You can use it as you wish. And here is the sampling. As you can see, there's a red sheen is coming through here. It's also coming through in the handwriting. The red is punchy. And I can definitely see some red sheen in that Jerabin ink. So very, very nice. It compares very nicely to that original Tomore River. Okay, you can see some, the inks have penetrated. It's 56. It's very thin. But as far as the handwriting, you can see some of the see-through, but there's no bleed-through and certainly no feathering on the paper itself. So that's Aura Estelle Simple Grid A5 notebook. Okay, it's very, very, very affordable. The next one is I got this on AliExpress, and it's really an imitation of Hobonichi. Take a look at this. I mean, and I think half of the price, if not even less. Very nice Tomoe River paper. It's got 1 page per day. It's got calendars at the beginning, monthly calendars, weekly calendars, etc. So very, very, very nice. It's called Kinbor. It's the Kinbor planner. I think at very, very good prices, an excellent replacement, if you will, for or alternative to Hobonichi. In terms of the swatching, take a look at this. Beautiful. The sheen is there. The red is punchy, and you've got sheen and shimmer and shading in that Jerabin ink. So again, chapeau to this Kinbor. Take a look at it. It's if you're into Hobonichi but don't want to spend the money, definitely a good alternative. It's got a full year here, and it's got also some additional blank pages at the end, just like Hobonichi, with the different months. It's not the same quality in terms of the binding and all the rest of it, but I think it's very comparable and at a very, very affordable price. So chapeau to Kinbor, AliExpress. The next, I've done these already. These are the Sakae TP Tomore River notebooks. The only thing I wanted to mention is that I have mine in grid, but you can get it in plain paper, and you can get these A6 sizes as well. And what I do want to show you is that you can get them in different sizes. These are not cheap, but excellent quality if you're into the Sakae TP. Okay, so that completes all of my Tomore River notebooks. The next category that I want to show you is what I call the Tomore River alternatives, if you will. And the first alternative, which was anointed as such, is the Cosmo Air Light. This is the notepad from Yamamoto. I mentioned to you, these pads are just fabulous. I think they're very, very nice. And here you have it. That's the first one. Take a look at the sheening on the Colorverse. Less punchy on the red as some of the Tomore River that we just saw, but nonetheless punchier than this one anyway. Okay, and you can definitely see the red sheen in this Jerabin ink. In fact, you can also see it in the handwriting. In terms of what does it look like on the reverse side, even less bleed through or see-through for the writing. Yes, the inks, these are big swatches. I don't think you really need to be concerned about that because you rarely put that much ink when you're writing. It's the writing that you should be examining, and take a look. You can't even see anything. Now this is a, is it 68? Yeah, it's a 68. So definitely it's a much thicker, and that's actually 75 grams. So that explains why there's really no see-through. Okay, so that's the Cosmo Air Light writing pad from Yamamoto, and they have a wonderful template that fits really nicely, both lined or grid. Okay, so that's the Yamamoto. Then I have the Cosmo Note. It's just a different version. It's also Yamamoto, but just a different version of a different notebook. And this one is plain again. And let's take a look at the sampling here. The red sheen is coming through on the Colorverse. Nice punchy red for the Waterman ink. And I definitely see the red sheen in this Sherbang. In fact, I see it even more in the handwriting. So chapeau. This again is a very thick paper. So a little bit of bleed through there just because there was a lot of ink on my M, if you will, on my dip pen, but otherwise reacts very nicely. Very little see-through. This is it 75 or 68? Let me just see. There's no mention of the thickness of the paper. I apologize, but you can take a look at on site. I've got the link there, and I'm sure. But I can tell you it's much thicker than. Okay, it's an 83 gram. There you have it. It's 83 grams. So it's thick paper, and that explains why there's really no see-through. Okay. The next one is the Stalogy. Now, we did take a look at Stalogy in part 1 of my guide. What I wanted to show you here is that there is another size that I didn't know existed, which is this big, they call it the sheet pad. So it's a notepad, what is it, A4, yeah, an A4 notepad. So nice and big. So for those of you who want a notepad format, there you have it. Okay, very nice. And typically, Stalogy, there's no sheen. It's punchy, but there's no sheen. There's a little bit of shimmer, little bit just slight sheen in the Sherbang, but otherwise, the beauty of this paper is, yes, the sheen doesn't come through, but it's really a really nice, friendly fountain pen paper at a very affordable price. That's why some of us have categorized this as an alternative to Tomoe River. It writes like Tomoe River in terms of the smoothness, but you don't get the same effects on the ink. In terms of, and you can see there is definitely bleed through. It comes right through. In fact, so much so that so you've got to be careful in terms of the ink that you use. If you're going to get a very thick ink like the Sherbang, well, you should expect the worst. Okay, there you have it. But if you can find an ink that's a standard ink, it can survive. But that's the Stalogy. What I like about the Stalogy is the fact that it comes in this longer size, and usually I write only on one side in any event. Okay, so that's the Stalogy Sheet Pad A4 size. Now we're going to take a look at the third category. In that third category is the category of notebooks that stand on their own. The first one I have is this Graphilo. I meant to purchase this for some time now, and I kept forgetting, but there you have it. I bought one. And here is the sampling that we have on the Graphilo paper. You can definitely see the sheen. It writes very nicely, by the way. You've got the shading. You've got some shading and very punchy with the Waterman red. And I've got the sheen, the red sheen and the shimmer in this Sherbang, and I could definitely see it also in the handwriting. So a very good alternative. It's expensive, but nonetheless, very nice paper. What does it look like on the other side? Well, look at that. It's a thicker paper, by the way. Let me just give you the specs. Do they have it here? I can't see what the thickness of the paper is. No, I don't see it here. But trust me, folks, it's much, much thicker than the 56 Tomoe River, and that explains why it reacts very nicely, but perfectly fountain pen friendly. Graphilo, that's Graphilo. Next on my list is the Oasis. This is the Oasis notebook that I always meant to purchase. I bought a small A6 size just because I wanted to test it before I go into the A5 or the A4, and it's very, very nice. I've got to tell you, it's one of my favorite papers. This is very thick. It's as thick as, you know, Moorman, Apica. It's in that same category of paper. As you can see the red sheen. It's a punchy red, and you can definitely see the sheen on the Oasis as well. So very nice notebook. I recommend it in all sizes. Now that I've tested the notebook on an A6, I think I'm going to purchase some of the bigger sizes. That's Oasis. Next, one of my viewers said, can you check out Penco? Well, there you have it, Penco. Very nice notebook, by the way. Very well made. It's got a plastic cover. I really like the grid on this thing because it's kind of a bigger grid, nice gray. It's a creamish type of paper color, but nonetheless, very nice. Now, you know, it's not as performing, but at the price, I think it's a nice notebook every day. If you're not necessarily care about, you know, all these inks and all their characteristics, it's still a very punchy blue, but as you can see, I'd see no sheen. Punchy red, little bit of shimmer there, but no sheen coming through. It's a very thick paper, so with normal inks should not have a problem. But as you could see, on kind of the messier inks like the Colorverse, there is some bleed through. There is some on this one. Not on the standard papers here and standard inks. I think it's doable. It's still fountain print. It reacts fairly well. Okay, so there you have it. That's so I think at the price, this Penco notebook, very nice. And I thank that viewer who asked me to review. And there you have it. It's a B6 size. Going to get some mileage. Okay, the next one. Next one is Penbbs notebook. So they have pens, they have ink, they also have notebooks. Very hard to get and often out of stock. But I have two of them. I have them in the form of this notebook form and also in a notepad form. This is the notebook and this is the notepad. Okay, it's the same paper. So we'll take a look at how the ink reacts. Very little sheening, red sheening on the Colorverse. Punchy red. A little bit of goes through here, but mostly shimmer. There's some feathering, however, on the paper. Yeah, with this messy ink. This one's a tough one. Very little feathering, but still some on these two other inks. And in terms of what it looks like on the other side, as you can see with the messier ink, there's some bleed through, but survives the other two inks. You know, the Colorverse ink is a nasty one, nice and wet, and it's punchy. This Waterman is a standard ink, so you could see that a little bit of bleed through there, but mostly the bleed through is on this tough Cherubin ink. Okay, so that's the Penbbs notebooks. The next one is this Yamamoto. I was mentioning about these pads. This is the famous bank paper. I always wanted to try it, and I'm glad I did. Here it is, the bank paper. Look at the sheen on this bank paper, and also on the writing, by the way. And this paper almost feels like onion paper. More in the style of Maruman, again, Apica. You know, it's got that very, very slippery, smooth surface. but yet see-through. Beautiful sheen. Look at this how this Waterman. In fact, with the Waterman, not only is it punchy, but I got some of the sheen. I got some of the gold sheen and the orange shading. So that is the only one of the few notebooks where I got to see how Waterman really reacting differently here. With that Gerabin, I've got the sheen, I've got the shimmer, I've got some shading, especially on the writing. So this bank paper is fabulous. I'm going to use it, let me tell you, folks. I'm glad I took the jump, as they say. And in terms of the other side, it's a thick paper. Does it give me the... I should have had that information, but you have the link and you can look it up. But I can tell you that, okay, it's 87.9. It's right here, 87.9 grams. So it is a thick paper, but quite nice. And as you can see it, apart from the red, because of just the way I blotched up one of the letters, so you see some see-through, but very little bleed-through, if you will. A very nice paper. Glad probably this, along with the Oasis, are amongst the two my favorite in this batch of alternatives. Okay, so that's the bank paper. Next is the Fabriano. I always wanted to check Fabriano, an Italian paper, just to see how it performs. Not bad, not bad. Very toothy. It's got some teeth, more than others. But again, a little bit of sheening, nice punchy red, a little bit of sheen in the Gerabin, but very little, mostly shimmer. But very nice. Okay, it's a thick paper. And on the other side, other than the big swatches, the rest is very fountain pen friendly. Some see-through, but nothing serious. Okay, very doable. It's only really in the swatches that you see some bleed through. The rest is some see-through, but very nice. So I like this paper. It's got a little more tooth. So if you want a paper that you can feel the pen, well, there it is, Fabriano, Ecoaqua. It's not cheap, but it's not as expensive as any Bonici or any of the Tomore River. Okay, there you have it. Next on the list. Now, this is a bargain, and I purchased it. Who convinced me? Oh, Doodlebud had some sampling of this Muji paper. I've got two different types of notebooks. One is referred to as Muji recycled paper, and the other one is just Muji notebook. I'm not sure that there is a difference between the two papers. Definitely a difference in terms of how they're bound. But let's take a look at this spiral Muji. And you know what? This is probably number 3 on my list in terms of, at the price, definitely recommend it. It's kind of a creamish color, but look at the red sheen on this colorverse. Very punchy red, and it's also got some of that brown gold sheen coming through on the Waterman, and you've got the sheen, the shimmer, and the shading in the colorverse. So you know what? The inks really pop out at very, very, very cheap price. It's a recycled paper and very, very fountain pen friendly. Yes, you can see some of the bleed through in the big blotches, but those are swatches. Okay, but in the handwriting, very nice. So, chapeau. Thank you, Doodlebud. I think I'm going to purchase some of this stuff because it's cheap, as I said, and I'm going to look for different sizes. I might end up using it as notebooks, everyday notebooks at the office. And in terms of the other notebook, very comparable. So I think it's basically the same type of paper. This one is dot grid and a little bit lighter. This one's a little bit creamier and it's lined. But in terms of how it compares, you can see it's essentially the same type of paper. So that's Muji. Well, recommended, especially because of the price. Next, well, this black and red has always been, at the forefront as, paper that's not expensive. You can buy it in most stationery stores, Staples, that sort of thing. And here you have it. I mean, it's not, it doesn't give you the same ink quality. As you can see, there's no sheen in any one of those inks. There's a little bit of shimmer on the Girabin, but the inks. But is it fountain pen friendly? I think it is. With standard inks, you shouldn't have a problem. These are blotches, these are the swatches. But in the more complex inks, not recommended. But in some standard inks, especially some of the drier ones, an everyday notebook, very smooth. It's thick paper, very good prices, an alternative. So that's the black and red notebook. Next, this is the P di Pugna. It's an Italian paper. The reason why I have it is to tell you folks, stay away from this paper. Absolutely awful. I've got to tell you, and let me explain. So if you see it and you're tempted by it, it's a prestigious Italian paper, but I don't know why, frankly. It's just awful. First of all, there's feathering. There's no sheening whatsoever. Yes, there's some shimmer. There's feathering. It's scratchy. It's got too much tooth. I don't know if this paper is meant to be written with fountain pens. It's probably paper that's meant for watercoloring or that sort of thing with brushes. I don't recommend it. Yes, there's no bleed through, but you just can't write with it. So this P di Pugna, sorry Italians, this is not your favorite paper. I put it in there just to tell you, stay away from it. It came in 2 different sizes. I'm not even going to bother, just to let you know. The name is there. If you're tempted, stay away. Next is this Rollbahn by Delfonics. I think this is great paper. I think it's great paper. This is an old notebook that I've had for years now. Let me just find where I've done the swatch. Yes, it is kind of a yellowish notebook, and a little bit of red sheening. The red is punchy. A little bit of the gold and the shading comes out through the red. Very little red sheening on that Girabin, but you can definitely see the shimmer. In terms of how does it perform, I think with the handwriting performs very well. Of course, ignore the swatches. A little bit of bleed through just because I botched up the lettering there. It very thick, came out very thick, and it came through. But otherwise, fairly fountain pen friendly. I find this notebook just enjoyable to write on, and that's why I've included it. And it's mentioned by others, so I figured, why not? Let's take a look at it. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit under the weather there, so kind of losing my voice. Okay, the next paper, this is Penbbs Kokuyo Paper A4 66 ruled. It comes in loose leaf version. It's kind of a very slippery, shiny paper, a little bit like Maruman, a little bit like Apica, a little bit like the Oasis that we saw. Bank paper, sort of. And you can see that the sheen is there. The punch on the red with the gold sheen came through. And you can see the red sheen, the shimmer, and the shading with the Girabin. So very, very nice paper. What does it look like on the other side? Let me just remove it from its... As you can see, very fountain pen friendly. It is on the thick side. And of course, other than the swatches, in terms of, you can hardly see it. Very good paper. And the facility is that this comes punched, so you can use different loose leaf binders, and it comes in an A4 size, okay? And it has at the top, you can put the number of the pages, the date. This is more like a meeting notebook, if you will. So there you have it. So that's the Kokuyo Campus paper. Next. Okay, so the next paper that I'd like to propose is this Filofax paper. Now, usually they come in separate sheets, and you can have lined or you can have planner type sheets. They're perforated already, and this is the Filofax system. I show you an example of this. This is actually bigger size, but you can get in all sizes, and they have, you know, binder like closings here, and the holes are perforated, and you can put in. The advantage of these sheets, of course, is that, you know, you can replace the sheets, you can remove them, you can, if you don't like one of them, you can remove and replace, and you can supplement as you go along. So that's Filofax, and that's just a sample of that. But as you could see, there's very little. I mean, when you use this paper, I think it's probably fountain pen friendly. But let me tell you, when I did these swatches, it came down like it just dries up as soon as it hits the paper. So you can tell it's going right through. You get no sheen, you get no shading whatsoever. It's punchy red, a little bit of that shimmer because you have no choice. You know, you got that gold glitter that's gonna penetrate. There is no feathering, so you could see it's a nice line. It's got some tooth. The paper does, and as you could see, just the messy ink goes through, but the rest is pretty. There's no see-through, there's no bleed-through, there's no feathering, and of course the swatches. But once again, paper is not made necessarily, or if you want to use the paper to write, not necessarily made for swatching, if you will. So, but it gives you an idea of how the ink reacts to that particular paper. So that's Filofax. Now, the next one that I'd like to take a look at for you is Regalia Paper. Now, Regalia Paper has been, passed off or touted as being the replacement of Tomore River. I'm sorry, it doesn't even come close, okay? I'm not suggesting it's not a nice paper. For those of you who like toothy paper with some texture, Regalia is nice. It's certainly fountain pen friendly. As you can see here, there's a little bit of red sheen coming through. It's a punchy red with no real sheen other than some shading. Very little sheen comes through this Regalia, this Gerbin. In fact, I see more sheen in the writing than I do in the swatching. But having said that, in terms of how, now this is that, what do they call this? I think they call this the chalkboard, or you have the name in my, the creative block. Okay, it's the creative block. This is the A4. It's 80 gram. It's acid free, and it comes in smaller formats as well. What I find lovely about this is that, it's a nice notepad. You can rip off the page and proceed. It's a block. I wish I could find something like this in all the papers. Okay, so there is some advantage to it. And yes, I was just about to show you in terms of what does it look like on the reverse side. As you could see, the ink went right through, but not the writing. The writing is no bleed through. I mean, it's an 80 gram, so it better not. But the swatching has, to the point where I could see some bleed through right there. But in terms of the writing, just excellent. And there is no feathering on the page. And in fact, the sheening, I can see more sheening on the writing, as you can see. I don't know if the camera picks it up. Yes, it does. Than I do on the swatch. Now, of course, you have the endless recorder, which is in the notebook format. Okay, you got all kinds of, this is the line version. Most of them are they're numbered pages. I find that this notebook doesn't kind of open up. You got to kind of educate it a little bit, but better than most. But it's not Tomore River. It really isn't. This is a also 80 grams. So I didn't test this because it's essentially the same paper. But this is a nice notebook. It has a little sleeve here to put additional paper if you wish, or notes. It's a nice notebook, solid. Do I use it? No. I don't like it. It's stiff. The paper's too thick. And frankly, I'm not enamored by this Regalia paper. I got to tell you, I don't know how and when I'm going to use this notebook, but there it is. You've got that for your review at least. Okay, so that's the Regalia. Okay, what I've got next for you is, amazing enough, this is a notebook that I buy for the office, or I take lots of notes. And you can't, I guess you can use Tomoe River at the office, but it becomes a very expensive venture, where you take notes and then you take the piece of paper and throw it away, and not permanent notes of any sort, and they're not part of your journal. It's just notes in a file, or you want some summary notes on, for example, I'm an attorney. You're listening to a transcript of a testimony. You want to just jot down some quick notes. We use what we reference as legal pads, if you will. Okay, and one day I decided to buy these Amazon Basic notepads, and you know what? I was pleasantly surprised. Now let's just this is the lined version. And you got to be careful, because I remember buying a grid version and the paper feathered, and it wasn't the same quality. But this particular one, and I've given you the link, is actually not bad at all. Now, is it fully fountain pen friendly? Perhaps not. But let me show you how I think it's a good alternative and very cheap. I mean, you can buy blocks of 6, 7, a dozen of these notepads for very little. So that's the advantage. Now, in terms of sheening, I'm not getting any sheening. I'm getting the punch on the red, the punch on the blue. I do have some sprinkling of a shimmer, but have no illusions. There's no sheen here at all. Okay. Now, the paper is not bad. It's got a nice thickness. And look, on the other side, I mean, it's acceptable. Okay. Yes, that Gerbin ink went through, but that's a messy ink. Okay. But Waterman and Colorverse, no bleed through, no feathering, and not even any see-through, apart from the swatches, which I mentioned. All of the paper will show those swatches. Okay. So to me, this is a good alternative. It's a good, cheap alternative. Not an alternative to have fun with, but an alternative to, in terms of everyday use and value. This Amazon Basics could do the trick. So that's Amazon Basics. Let me show you another paper. This is the Ayush paper, which is an Indian-made paper from what I understand. Here's a block. It's not the greatest quality in terms of the binding and all the rest. It's a no-frilled sort of a paper. And when I got this block, all the corners were all bent and all the rest of it, so you could see the packaging wasn't ideal. But having said that, it's an extremely well-priced product, okay, and performs very, very well, I would say. It's got a nice texture. It's not too toothy, and it's not too smooth, just right. It's also got a fair amount of thickness. Okay, it's very thick. Look at the red sheen. Got more sheen there than I do on my Tomoe River original. I've got sheen on the red with the punch, and I've got sheen, shimmer, and shading with the Gerbin. So congrats. And I've got lots of variation there, especially on the writing. And what does it look like in terms of on the other side. Take a look at that, folks. Not even, I mean, there's not even bleed through of the sampling, okay, of the swatches. So if you can get your hands on this paper, I think this notepad is a bit too big. I don't like the A4 format. If I couldn't find the A5, and I wanted to order it for this, specifically for this review. I'm very, very pleased, I must say, and it's a paper that I think I'm going to be ordering again. So there you have it. That's the Ayush paper. Very, very nice, and comes recommended for me anyway. The next paper, I had bought this a long time ago, and this thing, I think it went even was very popular at one point. The objective of this notebook is to use it this way, underneath your keyboard. Okay, it's what they call a panel book. So that when you open it up, it's underneath your keyboard, and you can take some notes, and you take your notes this way. Okay, so now I did the swatching, and it teaches you how to use the notebook, etc. It's just unfortunate the paper is not the best paper in the world. Here's the swatching. As you can see, again, very, very rough. So, my dip pen had some difficulty writing. But having said that, I don't get any sheen at all. I do have some of that shimmer. The punch is there. But, there's no feathering. There's no feathering at all. If you like toothy paper, this is good. It did go through, so you could see there was quite a bit of bleed through on the swatches anyway. But on the writing, apart from a little bit of see-through with the Gerbin, the rest is just excellent. Now, it has a certain amount of thickness, so that helps. But again, it's an alternative. I did want to mention, in case some of you may have come across this panel book and wondered what it was all about. There you have it. It also comes in a box where you could. Where's the box? Right here. It comes in a box like this, so that you could, keep it from year to year. It could be like a year journal, and you can file it that way. There you have it. So that's the panel book. Now, the next paper that I'd like to review with you is indeed the Kokuyo, or how to pronounce that, Kokuyo paper. Now, the first one that I have for you here on screen actually comes in this, it's loose paper. It's the first time I see, this amount of paper in A5 size, which is really, really interesting. They refer to it as business paper. Okay, and the size, as you see, is there. Very nice paper, I must admit. I got some sheen. I've got some sheen here as well on the Waterman. Nice and punch and shading. I've got some sheen, shading, and shimmer for my Jacques Urbain. I see it also in the writing, which is very nice. Flip side, other than the, and it's a thinner paper. It's not 80 or 90, Other than the swatches, even that messy Gerbin, there's no feathering, really no see-through, and really no bleed-through. So very, very nice paper. I discovered this, and let me tell you, when you get a block of this much paper, look, you're good for quite a while. You know what I'm saying? And I think this cost maybe $20. So it's something that I really, really check it out. You'll see my links. Do your own research, but folks, this is nice. And what's next on my list for you? Well, this is not a notebook or a journal or a notepad. It's in fact a swatch book that you may have seen me use. It's the Waringal color swatch book. Okay, very thick paper, and you can swatch your inks there, and and title them. It shows a little bottle, and your swatch underneath, and you can even swatch the top, frankly. And as you can see, I swatched the Colorverse Supernova. I swatched the Waterman Audacious Red and the Gerbin Emerald de Chival, and all of the inks are well represented. You've got the sheening, the shimmering, the shading, everything you need on this. And what I've done, I begin to do here, it's an alternative, so I've got all the orange, and then another 40 pages I got all the red and all the brown, so I'm filling it up slowly. So it's a nice addition to swatching books. If you don't like the book per se, but prefer to have cards, well, Waringo also has cards. So you can have it in the form of cards, and then of course you can put them in plastic sleeves, in a binder, or you can punch a hole through them and keep them on a ring as you wish. They have various versions of these cards. I know they have some with animals, and just recently, this is the bottle. Then I have the other version, which is a version where you could, I don't know if you could see this on camera, but this part is square, and you can go, if you step out of that square, it won't ink up. So it stays within the square, if you will, and you can put your title of your ink here. So those are the cards that Waringo, and there's other ones, there's a cat, there's figures of animals, there's all kinds of, but I find these cards are a better alternative than the coloring cards that we're used to and that you've seen, that unfortunately may not give you the same punch in terms of your swatching. But there again, this is not a journal notebook, but I figured I'd throw them in just for you to look at and consider. So that's the Waringo. Okay, now one last paper, and I've left this one for the end because, as you could well imagine, I've done this video over several hours, and believe it or not, I was waiting for one more paper product to be delivered to me by Amazon that was preventing me from finishing up my video, and I just received it. And I take it back. The other inks, the other three favorites that I've identified so far, this one beats them all. I've got to tell you, I am very, very impressed. This is the Sakae TP Iroful paper. It comes in loose leaf. I'm not sure. I think there's no notepads available yet. It's Japanese paper. Honestly, I came across this by watching. I don't know. You guys should take a look at that reviewer by the name. I think the channel is called Wet Pens. He does some really nice reviews of inks, of paper, of pens, and very, 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 very well done. And I noticed that when he does ink reviews, he's got different swatch cards or swatch paper that he uses. And one of them, he kept saying Iroful, and I kept seeing this on those little cards. And I said, Iroful, I've never heard of Iroful. So I looked it up, and here it was. And I said, well, if this gentleman is using Iroful for his swatches, and I noticed the swatches are all very nicely portray the ink, so it's not a dead swatch, if you will. It's quite a lively one. So I've ordered it, and here's my first swatching with this paper. And let me tell you, I think this is probably the top one of all of these other 40 that I've identified, other than the Tomore River paper, and that's my favorite. And even then, I think it rivals, because you could take a look at this. First comment, look at the sheening. The sheening comes through. I've got some shading in Colorverse. which is really, really nice. I've got some shading and some sheen and some punch on my Waterman Audacious Red. And I don't know if you could take a look at this, but here, I'll put it against the light. Take a look at how it portrays the G-Urbain one. I've got the sheen, I've got the glitter, I've got the shading. I mean, you know, it is absolutely, absolutely fabulous. And what I noticed is when I wrote with this paper, and here again, I'm not sure the camera is doing justice to it, but it kind of, the line comes down or comes onto paper much thicker and smoother, buttery smooth. And the paper is not that smooth type like Maruman or Apica. It's somewhere in between Tomoe River and that. And you know what? It gives me thicker lines. The ink, especially on this Colorverse, and it was just, put it this way, it was just a very nice writing experience. And it is incumbent on me to stress that if you can get your hands on this paper, if you're somebody who likes to have fun with inks, because it is expensive. I believe that this, what is it, 100 sheets cost me $15. But, you know, the Tomore River Sakae TP notebook, that's about 100 sheets. Well, it's a notebook, though. Goes for about $40, $50. Okay, so let's understand each other. It is expensive, but nonetheless much less expensive. And on the other side, yes, there's some, you know, bleed through, not bleed through, but show through, and a little bit of bleed through. But it's just very, very nice. I'm very impressed. I cannot stress how much I recommend this paper. And as it turns out, it was the last one on my list. So there you have it. That gives you in all another 40 products combined with the 60, 70. Originally, I didn't really count the first part. You have probably over 100 different products. They're all time-stamped with links to the internet for you to you know, appreciate. I sincerely hope you appreciate the effort that it took to do all this. I know these are very long videos, but it's meant for you to be able to use as a resource. When it's time for you to look for something or you're curious, take a look at my video, go to the timestamp, and if you have the time and the inclination to go through it all, by all means, be my guest. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I haven't stopped. I'm sure there's going to be a part 3 and probably a part 4, and I'll keep digging. And if I find any interesting papers, I will accumulate them until I have a certain number, and then we can put out a part 3. So there you have it. Grazie molto. Arrivederci. Statevi bene. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you.